Damn you, overpowered fish biceps! She helped Frisk get back on their feet and threw them into the water. What a troll! Welcome to the third part of
AI Tale.
Let's not waste any time and jump right back into the fun. If you missed the previous parts, the playlist is in the description. A super quick recap. Frisk left the ruins and met Sans in his gorgeous orange suit, who wants a kiss from a princess. Papyrus was a cute girl, and the house was completely obliterated. A mysterious character called the Puppet Master appeared, but it turned out it was just Gaster who trolled everyone. At the end, the skeletons went to a different dimension or something. So now let's go to Waterfall. Frisk left Snowdin and headed towards the gloomy Waterfall area. The head was still full of unanswered questions, which at first glance isn't too uncommon for a teenager. What just happened? What is the point of this whole journey? Why hasn't Frisk figured out that gender yet? Only one thing was perfectly clear. They didn't belong in the human world. While the more sensible parts of their mind were trying to make sense of it, the last bit of their sanity was trying to figure out how to leave the human world. But they already left the human world and became a monster. Maybe they are having flashbacks or trauma? Frisk was confused all the time in the last episode. I suspect that Frisk had to flee to the underground because they didn't belong to the human world. Sounds a bit like a witch hunt. The last bit of their sanity was trying to figure out how to leave the human world without being arrested or killed. That sounds like Frisk was in a very dangerous situation. It's best to remember that there are only two situations that people in the world can get caught in. Either you can find out you were adopted, or you can learn you were a changeling. Changelings always appear as children and usually avoid adults, though they can easily walk the streets without anybody noticing. I am not quite sure where the AI is going with this. Maybe that only adoption or being a changeling can make you leave the human world legitimately? A bit confusing. Frisk's mind has been particularly hazy since they left their home, even forgetting that they had lived in the monster world for years. What are you doing, punk? Undyne, the chief royal guard, leaped off a higher cliff, a spear in her hand. Waterfall isn't a place for rugrats like you. Undyne pressed the spear into Frisk's chest, pinning them to the ground. Who are you? What's your name? Who's in charge of this mess? Wow, she's very aggressive and proactive. The boy looked up at her. I'm Frisk and Frisk stopped, realizing he was never going to get the chance to finish that question. Undyne leaped down from the cliff again and landed directly on top of the boy, pinning them to the ground. She took out her sword. So she pinned down Frisk, then climbed back on top of the cliff just to jump down and do the same thing again, probably with more force. That actually sounds like something Undyne would do. My, lady, I would appreciate it if you stopped and asked me nicely before deciding to slice me in half. Frisk tried to struggle against the woman's vice-like grip. You're the most unlikely fighter I've seen. How in the world could someone this young have climbed that cliff? And how in the world could he survive when he fell down a waterfall, even if he didn't realize it? That sounds a bit like a threat to Frisk. How could you survive if I accidentally pushed you over the edge? And the answer is never. Where are you coming from? Frisk looked up to see the woman that he and the monster world called Reshiram staring down at him. Ah yes, Undyne, also known as Reshiram. There sure are a lot of similarities between the two. Undyne pushed her spear against Frisk's body with a lot of force to immobilize them on the ground. They couldn't move an inch. Do you have any idea what I would do to you if you were still a human? She shouted. Frisk turned their head away, just enough so they could see the old woman. She had knelt down on one knee and was staring them directly in the eyes. Frisk, I saw your mother when I had snuck out of my office. She was broken, beaten, but not defeated. That was why she was down on the ground. Because she was fighting, even with her whole heart, even with her last remaining strength. She was fighting the tributes to the buffer, but she still kept fighting, even as they finished cutting her head off. I had never seen anything like it. I didn't want to see her like that, but I did. Oh my god, that sounds horrible. Frisk's real mother was beheaded, and Undyne witnessed the murder. That must have caused some deep mental scars. It seems like Frisk's family was absolutely despised in the human world. No wonder they fled to the underground. Man, this has gotten dark. Frisk, while still pinned down by Undyne, stopped resisting after she told how she saw the gruesome death of their real human mother. Toriel adopted you, and we all accepted you as one of us, she muttered. So tell me, she moved closer to Frisk's face. Why are you running around so carelessly? Frisk was surprised at her sudden outburst. Toriel sighed and leaned her head down and looked at the boy. What? What is she suddenly doing here? Okay, I guess you know why, don't you? She said, her voice starting to tremble. I'm sorry. I just don't get why you did it, let alone doing it twice in a row. Maybe it's because of the times you lived here? Toriel looked at Frisk, as if seeking for an answer. Did you ever live here? She asked with a sad tone. In this house? Frisk looked down, unsure about whether she had or not. I didn't know you. I didn't think you had that. Toriel's words hit Frisk. That sounds to me as if Frisk is having some sort of flashback or hallucination. Toriel seems to be very disappointed. Frisk did something twice in a row that she disliked. I hope we'll figure out what it is. I'll add my 2 cents during theory time. But one thing I want to highlight after Undyne asks, why are you running around so carelessly? Frisk imagines Toriel saying, I guess you know why, don't you? So deep inside, Frisk knows why they are on this journey. The AI is teasing us a lot without giving specific information. That's both cool but also cruel. What the hell are you talking about? Undyne angrily snarked. Frisk's face started changing color. She had pushed down too hard, causing a slight brain hypoxia, which in turn made Frisk imagine Toriel instead of Undyne. I guess I should apologize. Damn you overpowered fish biceps! She helped Frisk get back on their feet and threw them into the water. What a troll! Undyne then turned to the innocent players, knocking one of them into the sea with a punch and smirking, seemingly mocking their combat prowess. And now she's punching random people. That is so perfect. So here's my idea. They are just some kids that got dropped off in a random dungeon, probably to survive on their own for a few days. Let them live there. Let them die. Who cares? Ouch, that's rough. It's not like they'll grow to learn the art of cooperation and friendship, which I myself was very ashamed of. Ashamed that she also didn't learn that? I'm just sad that I killed the one true friend I had. A true friend who had strong feelings for another person. Oh no, please don't tell me she killed Elphys. This chapter is so dark. So not only did Undyne only ever have one real friend, and we don't know if that really is Elphys, and that friend had feelings for someone else, so Undyne killed them. That's already so sad. Frisk shivered. You killed your best friend because they loved somebody else. Undyne's face grew dark. It was a shitty thing to do. A horrible thing to do. She glared at them. I know. I should have listened to you. Shouldn't have done it myself. Should have. Shh. It's not your fault. It is my fault, damn it. There was a lot more yelling, a lot more shouting. The pair of them had a great time yelling at one another. It was great. They screamed at one another until the air was blue. Is that another flashback? Could be an argument between Undyne and that friend. I don't want you to end up like me. Undyne was crying now, whimpering. I don't want you to end up a monster, you big baby. Suffer, huh? I'm going to see you suffer for all of eternity, you lunatic. And then their shouting broke down into howling. This must be the scene where their friendship broke down. Undyne was in tears. They had been shouting at each other until they were out of breath. Where did it all go wrong? She exhaled, fully exhausted. Undyne stared at her best friend named Elphys. Oh no, Undyne killed Elphys in the story, that's horrible. And Elphys loved someone else. She was sitting across from Undyne, biting her lip. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask for help. Undyne closed her eyes. Fine. And I know it will be difficult. But I do believe there's someone that could help. Undyne stood up. Thank you. Elphys' eyes widened. I'll go. She jumped out of her seat and left the room. With a broken heart, Undyne left Elphys' lab. She needed someone to help her deal with the situation. To accept that Elphys wasn't loving her, but instead loved her son! Oh god! Elphys loved Undyne's son, that is messed up. On one hand, it's cool that she has a son, but man, this love triangle is something else. Later, Undyne returns and finds Elphys, who in her desperation created a creature. Elphys looked upset and fought back tears, saying that she had always loved her, and that even if Elphys wasn't making the hand, it was still her child. What? Undyne decides to take the hand in order to make her feel better and bring her happiness again. However, the device malfunctioned and it almost killed Undyne. Oh my, this is escalating quickly. She screamed and with tears in her eyes, dropped it as it started transforming into a monster. She then grabbed it and ran. Elphys quickly lost consciousness as the gun, this time loaded with steel, was fired. Undyne shot Elphys with a gun. Was that the someone to help her? So screwed up, but it doesn't straight up say that Elphys is dead. Undyne shot her and ran away, so maybe she just believes that Elphys died. And what is up with that hand? Even if Elphys wasn't making the hand, it was still Undyne's child. Was Elphys creating Undyne's son like a Frankenstein monster piece by piece? And all it was left was a hand. And worst of all, she fell in love with that thing. Whoa, that's beyond screwed up. Elphys had built me a child, piece by piece. All that was left was one hand. I had so many conflicting thoughts. When she fell in love with her own creation, my supposed son, Undyne was shaking. I had a breakdown, meltdown, short circuit, whatever you wanna call it. She looked at the ground. I shot her. I don't know if it killed her immediately or whether she died sometime later. All I know is that I have blood on my hands. And too much guilt. And that is the end of this chapter. Utter madness, what else can I say? A ton actually. It's
theory time.
First, let's jump back to Frisk's mother, who was killed right in front of Undyne's eyes. That makes me wonder whether there is no barrier. We don't know what exactly happened to Frisk before they were adopted by Toriel. We only had Toriel's dream at the beginning of part 1, but I guess we need to puzzle together on our own what actually happened. In the last part we discovered that Sans corrupted the thoughts of Frisk's father to make him do horrible things. So maybe Frisk's father was the murderer? Or he did something that made the humans want to kill Frisk's family. Either way, I have the suspicion that Sans is the original cause that led to Frisk's flee to the underground. If you have other ideas, write them down in the comments, maybe you caught a detail that I missed. Next up, the hallucination of Toriel. That may have been caused by trauma. Frisk has already lived through several PTSD-worthy situations. That conversation with Toriel may have unearthed something from deep within their psyche. I haven't figured out what they apparently did twice. Maybe leave Toriel? Perhaps you collected some clues and ideas? In any way, she asks the question whether Frisk truly ever lived with her. It could be that Frisk didn't fully accept his new underground home. Hopefully we'll find out in the future. And lastly, the insane story about Elphys. I think I already pieced together most of it, like Elphys piecing together Undyne's son. One thing that still confuses me though was the beginning where Undyne said, I don't want you to end up like me. I don't want you to end up a monster, you're a big baby. Which could suggest that Undyne also did some really bad things. Elphys then responded with, Suffer, huh? I'm going to see you suffer for all of eternity, you lunatic. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to mean, but their argument was pretty heated up, so maybe she just lashed out and I'm reading too much into it. In any case, Undyne was struggling mentally. Maybe she only acts tough on the outside, like towards Frisk, to hide her emotional pain. Heavy stuff. But we made it through. You may have noticed that there's no second reading this time. YouTube analytics suggest that people don't care about that, so I streamlined everything. If you happen to watch this video while the fourth part is already out, then a link should be on screen right now. See you there.